he comes again off the turnover, and he slams it home! Outstanding girls basketball matchup between the team on top. To the forehead, he scores!
Good afternoon and welcome to Unscripted with SkoodSports. I'm John Skudris for SkoodSports, bringing you all the sports that fit into one video. As always, please do like, share, and subscribe at SkoodSports on Twitter, or John Skudris on YouTube, John P. Skudris Sportscasting on Facebook, or www.johnskudris.com. Today we wrap things up with our NFL regular season predictions by taking a look at the NFC West. The final division that we'll examine here in our NFL picks as we get set to give you our postseason predictions. Last year we had a bit of a revolution in the NFC West with the Los Angeles Rams under first-year coach Sean McVay coming from the bottom to the top, as they were able to triumph over the rest of the division with an 11-5 record and win the NFC West en route to their first home playoff game in Los Angeles in over 20 years. Meanwhile, the rest of the division went into the offseason looking to catch the Rams, a couple of those teams doing their due diligence with veterans, others focusing on getting younger, and we'll take a look at all four today on Unscripted. Without further ado, let's get set with the NFL's predictions for the NFC West with the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, it was quite a renaissance for Los Angeles last year after falling into last place in the final year under Jeff Fisher, where they were never able to quite get it together, Of course, it was quite a renaissance last year for the Los Angeles Rams. After never being able to quite get over the 500 hump with Jeff Fisher, the team moved on to young Sean McVay, an assistant with the Washington Redskins, who had the tutelage to be successful, but many wondered if he had the experience. McVay proved that you don't need a lot of experience to succeed in the NFL, at least in the early going, as he turned the Rams around to lead Los Angeles to an 11-5 record in a home playoff game in 2017. This offseason, Los Angeles went out and continued to build on their success from a year ago. Key veteran additions include wide receiver Brandon Cooks, defensive lineman Ndamukong Suh, and secondary players Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and Sam Shields. Of course, the offseason wasn't without losses for Los Angeles, as wide receiver Sammy Watkins is now a Kansas City Chief. Also leaving on defense, Robert Quinn, Connor Barwin, Alec Ogletree, Trumaine Johnson, and Kayvon Webster. The team did a little bit of work on the offensive line in the NFL draft, selecting offensive tackle Joseph Noteboom and center Brian Allen with their first two picks, as they will look to build around Jared Goff for the foreseeable future. Los Angeles coming into this year is the clear favorite in the NFC West, and I don't disagree with Vegas as I take a look at their 2018 schedule. As you see there, they start off on Monday night, the late game at about 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time against the Oakland Raiders and John Gruden. I actually see the Rams losing that game to Gruden in his opening debut since returning to Oakland 20 years ago. Los Angeles will bounce back to win 4 of their next 5 games, 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. They'll take care of business against their division rivals, the Arizona Cardinals, as well as their cross-city rivals, the Los Angeles Chargers. After losing on Thursday night at home to the Minnesota Vikings, they'll bounce back with a couple of wins on the road at Seattle, where they seem to have a lot of success even during the Jeff Fisher years, and at Denver, a team that I do not have a lot of confidence in 2018. As we continue along, the Rams trade wins and losses over their next 5 games as they lose to the San Francisco 49ers on the road, beat the Green Bay Packers at home, then lose to the New Orleans Saints on the road. That's a real tough stretch for Los Angeles. Their schedule obviously a lot more difficult now, coming off a first-place slate versus off a last-place slate a year ago. They will then beat Seattle at home to sweep the Seahawks before losing to Kansas City in Mexico in Week 11 as they move into their bye week at a really rather mediocre 6-5. The division race will still be up for grabs heading into the final 5 weeks of the season, but Los Angeles' schedule does loosen up down the stretch. They'll take care of business on the road against NFC North Division foes Detroit and Chicago. A huge home win against the Philadelphia Eagles will set the Rams up for tiebreakers in the postseason as they will beat Philadelphia at home. They'll then wrap up an 11-5 regular season by taking care of division rivals Arizona and San Francisco in Week 17. That 49ers game will be for the NFC West Division. And the fact that Los Angeles is at home you'd think would give them a home field advantage. They didn't experience much of that last year with the fans at LA, as predicted, being very complacent from the Coliseum, but I see LA nonetheless winning that, a little more experience on the Los Angeles roster than on San Francisco's in 2018. So Los Angeles wins the division at 11-5, 5-1 in division, 9-3 in the conference as they move on and win the NFC West for the second consecutive season. In second place in our NFC West predictions, we have the San Francisco 49ers. As I alluded to in our Rams predictions just moments ago, the 49ers will be neck and neck down the stretch to win the NFC West in 2018. Of course, last year was a roller coaster ride for first-year coach Kyle Shanahan. The team started out 1-9 before they made the trade for Jimmy Garoppolo from the New England Patriots. After falling to 1-10 in games started by C.J. Beathard, the 49ers decided to hand things over to their new gunslinger. And Jimmy Garoppolo certainly made the second-round pick they gave up to New England worth their while, as he won 5 consecutive games to end the year to continue to be undefeated in the NFL as a starting quarterback for either the Patriots or the 49ers. I don't think he'll be undefeated after 2018, but he's certainly going to lead the 49ers to a winning record. In the offseason, the Niners went out and acquired Jerick McKinnon to a lucrative contract. They also, of course, re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo to the richest contract in NFL history. On defense, the team brought in former All-Pro corner Richard Sherman from Seattle. Sherman doesn't have the skills he once did, but he's still a very quality number 1 or number 2 corner, and he's certainly going to be an improvement for a 49ers pass defense that struggled immensely at times last year. They did go into the offseason and lose a lot of veteran talent as well. Running back Carlos Hyde is gone. He'll be replaced by McKinnon. Also gone is offensive tackle Trent Brown, guard Zane Beadles, and center Daniel Kilgore. The team helped to replace those players both with free agents and with draft picks. They signed former first-round pick Jonathan Cooper, an offensive guard, as well as former first-round pick of the New York Giants, Weston Richburg, a center, and then drafted Notre Dame tackle Mike McGlinchey in the first round, a top 10 pick. McGlinchey expected to start right away for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's take a look without further ado at the 49ers schedule in 2018. As you see there, the 49ers have a tough matchup in Week 1 as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. This is a rematch of a couple of years ago when these two teams got underway in Week 1 and Minnesota was throttled by San Francisco. Minnesota then ended up going to the playoffs that year. I believe that was 2014 or 2015. San Francisco, meanwhile, fell into the gutter. That won't be the case this year, as the 49ers will bounce back in Week 2 to take care of the Lions before losing back-to-back road affairs against the AFC as they'll fall to the Chiefs and the Chargers to drop to 1-3. Jimmy G, having lost his first 3 games in his NFL career, will bounce back as he'll strike back in Week 5 to take care of Arizona. A big road Monday night win against Green Bay in Week 6 will get them back to 500, where he'll then win 7 of the next 8 games. The only loss coming on the road to Arizona. He'll take care of business against Los Angeles, Oakland, the Giants, Tampa, Seattle, Denver, and again the Seahawks in Week 15. That'll put the 49ers at 10-4 and firmly in control of their own destiny, not only to make the playoffs, but also to win the NFC West. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening. Chicago's a team that by Week 16, a lot of their young players and their new coaching staff under Matt Nagy will have their feet wet in the NFL, and they'll be ready to contend, perhaps in 2019, for a playoff spot. I see them taking care of business on the road in an upset at San Francisco, and then still controlling their own playoff destiny. The 49ers blow it by falling to the Los Angeles Rams in Week 17, as I just mentioned during the Rams preview, to drop to 10-6. That'll put them at 10-6 in second place in the division, 7-1 at home, 3-5 on the road. As you see there, the record against losing opponents is the reason why they're so successful. 7-2 overall on a strength of schedule below 500. That lends credence to the 49ers bouncing back from a 6-10 season a year ago. Despite the 10-6 record, I don't see the 49ers making the playoffs due to tiebreakers in a very difficult NFC. The last time an NFC team did not make the playoffs after finishing 10-6, the 2014 Philadelphia Eagles. In third place in our 2018 NFC West predictions, Sam Bradford and the Arizona Cardinals. Of course, Sam Bradford comes over to Arizona along with head coach Stephen Wilks. Wilks making his debut as an NFL head coach after spending just 1 year as defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. He was a defensive assistant for many years in Carolina. Of course, when they went 15-1 and went to the Super Bowl with their outstanding defense, he was there. It'll be interesting to see how he fares in his first year in a very tough division with a lot of good defenses. Of course, Arizona lost a lot in the offseason. On offense, gone is Adrian Peterson, as well as John Brown, Troy Nicholas, and Jared Valdir. On defense, Xavier Williams, their nose tackle, is out of here, as is linebacker Carlos Dansby. Their secondary probably took the biggest hit, as Tremont Williams, Justin Bethel, Tyvon Branch, and most notably the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu are all gone from the desert. They were replaced in the offseason mostly via free agency, as on defense the team picked up 3 corners, Jamar Taylor, Marcus Williams, and Bene Benwikiri from Carolina, where Wilkes, of course, coached the last few years. And on offense, they brought in offensive linemen Jandre Smith and Justin Pugh, and wide receiver Bryce Butler from the Dallas Cowboys. Perhaps their biggest moves, however, came in April's draft, where the team selected UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen in the first round and wide receiver Christian Kirk in the second. Kirk will probably make the biggest impact to start, as Rosen is expected to be holding a clipboard to begin the year. The team, of course, brought in Bradford and Mike Glennon in the offseason as free agents. Bradford expected to be the starter when the team gets underway against Washington next week. Bradford, of course, has long been considered one of the more talented quarterbacks in the NFL, who was just ravaged by injuries. Not only did the Los Angeles Rams, then the St. Louis Rams, spend a first overall pick on Bradford, who went on to win Rookie of the Year, then tear his knee up more times than Kajana Carter. Then the Philadelphia Eagles traded Nick Foles in a second-round pick for him, only to learn that Bradford was indeed as fragile as glass. Minnesota Vikings then traded a first and fourth-round pick to the Eagles for him a year later, only to learn that, yet again, Sam Bradford is as fragile as Odell Beckham's ego. Finally, the team did pick up Rosen, as I said, so we'll see whether or not Bradford, who has shown no ability to stay healthy, can do so in 2018, after Arizona gave him a ton of money for 1 year to come in and be a stopgap starter until Rosen is ready. Let's take a look at the Cardinals' schedule, and I actually see Arizona getting off to a really good start in the season under Bradford until either he gets hurt or the team's schedule just gets a little bit tougher in the second half of the season. The Rams begin the campaign by beating the Washington Redskins at home. After falling to Los Angeles on the road, they'll win back-to-back games to start out at 3-1. All 3 of those wins coming at home, beating Chicago and Seattle. Back-to-back road losses to San Fran and Minnesota puts Arizona back at 500 before they'll bounce back at home to take care of Denver on Thursday night and the San Francisco 49ers heading into their bye week at 5-3. After the bye week, though, things really fall off for the Arizona Cardinals, as this young team will continue to learn the ropes against tougher competition. A road battle at Arrowhead is an easy pick for me, a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. They'll bounce back to get their final victory of the 2018 season at home against Oakland before losing their final 6 games. Los Angeles and Green Bay on the road, Detroit at home, Atlanta on the road, LA at home, and the Seattle Seahawks on the road to finish the year. So from a 5-3 start to a 6-10 finish, 0-8 on the road, I have the Arizona Cardinals finishing below 500, 2 games worse than last year, and echoing in the Josh Rosen era in 2019, as Rosen will likely, if the team falls off that much in November, get a couple of starts in December. As Arizona finishes 6-10 and looks forward to a high draft pick in preparation for the 2019 season. And finally, my pick to finish in last place in the NFC West in 2018, a shocker, the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, Seattle has been so outstanding over the last half a decade under Pete Carroll with Russell Wilson at the helm. Ever since 2012, the Seahawks have only missed the playoffs once, and that was last year after a disappointing loss in Week 17 dropped them to 9-7 and out of the playoffs. The problem with Seattle is twofold. One, they lost an abundance of veterans in the offseason. Thomas Rawls is gone from the backfield. Wide receiver Paul Richardson is gone. Tight ends Jimmy Graham and Luke Wilson are out of here. On defense, the Legion of Boom is dead. Michael Bennett's a Philadelphia Eagle. Cliff Avrill's probably retired. Sheldon Richardson is gone, as are secondary players Richard Sherman, Jeremy Lane, and Deshaun Shade, whereas Blair Walsh is also gone from the special teams, as the Seahawks in the offseason attempted to replace those players adequately, both via the draft and via free agency. On defense, they brought in Dante Johnson, a cornerback, outside linebacker Barkevius Mingo, defensive lineman Tom Johnson and Shamar Stephen, and wide receivers Brandon Marshall and Jaron Brown, and tight end Ed Dixon. The biggest problem I see for Seattle in 2018, their offensive line. Russell Wilson can do only so much, and he showed last year that even his greatness wasn't enough to get Seattle back to the playoffs. Now with a team that lost Luke Jokel in the offseason, didn't really do a whole lot to replace their poor offensive line from a year ago, is going to see the regression from Wilson as he continues to get hit and hit and hit as the season goes on. In the draft, the team selected running back Rashad Penny, as Penny will attempt to take his talents from San Diego State to the NFL. A surprising first-round pick, Penny is expected to contribute immediately for Seattle. And as we take a look at their 2018 schedule, I see the Seahawks actually getting off to a solid start. They'll win their first 2 games on the road, something that has been a struggle for them over the last few years. But unfortunately, I think that's the only 2 games they win away from Seattle in 2018. They take care of business against Denver and Chicago before losing a home battle against Dallas. They then fall on the road to Arizona and then fall deep into a swoon heading into their bye week. Losses to Los Angeles and Oakland puts the Seahawks at 2-4 heading into their Week 7 bye. Things won't get easier out of the bye week as they'll fall on the road to Detroit. Bouncing back at home against the Chargers won't be enough to right the ship as Seattle falls to Los Angeles on the road. And despite a Thursday night victory against Green Bay, that will not send Seattle to 500. The Seahawks will lose to Carolina, San Francisco twice, and Minnesota before winning their final 2 games to salvage a 6-10 season and last place via tiebreaker in the NFC West. As you see there, the road woes will continue for the Seahawks as they fall to 2-6 away from Washington State, 3-7 versus winning teams, and 6-10 overall as they fall to last place in an extra competitive NFC West. Taking one final look at my predicted 2018 NFC West standings, as you see on your screen, the Los Angeles Rams 11-5 win the division for the 2nd straight year. San Francisco at 10-6 loses their final 2 games to choke away not only the division but also a playoff spot. And then Arizona and Seattle bringing up the rear of the NFC West, tied at 6-10. The Cardinals with that 2-4 divisional record versus Seattle's 1-5, finishing in 3rd to the Seahawks 4th. So after 1 month of predictions, 1 month of videos, we've reached the end of the 2018 NFL's regular season. Let's take a look at our final projected standings as we recap what has been an arduous process but a fun one nonetheless. In the AFC, as you see, the Steelers win the AFC North at 10-6, the Browns and Ravens at 8-8, and the Bengals at 7-9, bringing up the rear. In the South, the Texans in first place at 10-6, the Jaguars clinch the final wild card berth at 9-7, the Titans at 8-8, and the Colts at 6-10. In the East, the Patriots get the number 1 seed with a 12-4 mark, the Dolphins at 7-9, the Bills at 6-10, and the Jets at 4-12. And in the West, the Chargers win the NFC West at 11-5. The Chiefs get the top wild card at 9-7. The Raiders just miss out at 8-8, and the Broncos bring up the rear of the entire AFC at 2-14. In the NFC, the Green Bay Packers win the NFC North at 10-6 via tiebreaker over the Vikings, who miss out on the playoffs in a very difficult NFC conference. 10-6 for the Vikings, not enough to get in. The Lions at 9-7 will be a couple of spots out, and the Bears at 7-9 wrap up a very good NFC North. In the South, it's a tale of 2 teams, the Falcons and Saints. The Falcons winning the division thanks to a better divisional record than Drew Brees in New Orleans, who get the top wild card at 11-5. The Panthers at 7-9 finish in 3rd place, and the Buccaneers will be looking for a new coach and maybe a new quarterback after one of their worst records in decades, as the Bucs fall to 1-15 and get the number 1 overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. In the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles clinch the division at 11-5. The Cowboys at 10-6 get the last wild card thanks to a tiebreaker. The Redskins at 6-10 are in 3rd, and the Giants, while they do have top-end talent, not a lot of depth, finish 5-11 in last place. And in the NFC West, as we just recapped, the Rams in 1st at 11-5, the 49ers at 10-6, and the Cardinals and Seahawks at 6-10 bring up the rear. Taking a look at playoff matchups, the bye weeks in the AFC, the Patriots and the Chargers. The Patriots, the number 1 seed, the Chargers, the 2. The wild card matchups, as you see on your screen, will be the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 3 seed, hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, the 6 seed. That'll be their 4th matchup in 2 seasons, 2 last year and what would be 2 this year, 1 in the regular season and 1 in the postseason both times. Both postseason games in Pittsburgh. We're going to have playoff predictions shortly on Unscripted with SkoodSports. The other matchup in the AFC, the 4th-seeded Texans hosting the 5th-seeded Chiefs in a rematch of a wild card game from just a few years ago. In the NFC wild card, our first of the conference leaders, the Rams, the number 1 seed, 11-5. The Falcons also getting a bye as the 2 seed at 11-5. Via tiebreaker, the Philadelphia Eagles are the 3 seed. Having lost to both the Rams and the Falcons in my predictions, they will play the Dallas Cowboys, round 3 of the 2018 rivalry in the wild card round. And finally, the Packers, winners of the North at 10-6, will host the 11-5 New Orleans Saints in another great battle between 2 perennial contenders and 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. So as you see on your screen, those are the wild card matchups, with the Falcons and Rams getting byes in the NFC and the Patriots and Chargers getting byes in the AFC. On the next Unscripted, we will give you our playoff predictions and predict the matchup and the winner of Super Bowl 53 from Atlanta, Georgia. Can the Falcons become the first team to play at home in the Super Bowl? The Vikings weren't able to do it last year. We'll see if Unscripted with SkoodSports thinks the Falcons can do it in 2018. That'll wrap things up from here. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good sports. I'm John Skudris. This has been Unscripted with SkoodSports.